Hey there, it's Marshawn Evans Daniels, reinvention strategist, millionaire business mentor, and creator of Marshawn.com. Welcome to Let's Talk, where we break down all things related to life, business, and politics with a little bit of a twist, just sharing insights and perspectives from around the world. And today we are talking about what else? Donald Trump. He's getting ready to become president in 4 days. And the question is, with recent events, are we seeing somebody who is bipartisan or are we seeing bigotry? Specifically as it relates to the controversy surrounding Steve Harvey, John Lewis, and the president-elect, soon-to-be president of the United States of America. Now, full disclaimer, before we dive in, I've actually had interactions with several of the men that we'll be talking about today. I have worked with Donald Trump. I am a former competitor on The Apprentice Season 4. I was on 10 out of the 13 weeks, so I had an opportunity to engage with Donald Trump quite a bit. Furthermore, I actually live in the congressional district where John Lewis is a House of Representatives. So he is one of my representatives, and I've also served him in terms of volunteering for a youth initiative. He asked me to be on a panel and to inspire kids. And so I have some up-close perspectives, and I have a lot of respect for Steve Harvey. So let's dive right into it. Bigotry or bipartisanship? Let's tackle the bipartisanship piece first. So Steve Harvey, wonderful entertainer, somebody that I tremendously respect. He has literally come from the ground up. He is a self-made millionaire. He has hustled his heart out to get to where he is today. And so as an entrepreneur, I respect his grind. I also respect his faith. I respect his tenacity, and I respect his heart, his desire to give back. Years ago, when I was in Texas, I was appointed by Governor George W. Bush, who later became President Bush, not the older Bush, but the younger Bush. And I was appointed in 1999 to the Texas Juvenile Justice Advisory Board. So you may be saying, what is the Juvenile Justice Advisory Board? Basically, it's a commission that's put together. It's in all of the states, and the governor appoints the people who serve on this committee, and we make recommendations to the state, to the governor's office about policies that impact young people. So I was in this position at a very early age. I was just really in college. And what was interesting is how much backlash I received for taking the appointment and serving under a Republican governor. I heard all kinds of stuff about me being a traitor, that I should be opposing George W. Bush because of his policies and his beliefs. But you know what? Quite frankly, at 19 years old, I didn't really have these hard and fast beliefs. Here's what I did believe in. I believed in helping young people. I was appreciative of the fact that I got to go to school and I didn't have to dodge bullets, and I lived in a great neighborhood, and I had my lights on every day, and I didn't have to deal with some of the issues that other young people dealt with, and I became a passionate youth advocate. And that took me into law school, taking me to Georgetown, and later becoming admitted to practice before the U.S. Supreme Court. So that passion is what got me in there, and I looked at it as an opportunity to serve, an opportunity to have my voice heard. And I thought about all the people who were always so negative and told me that I shouldn't be there, that and even looked at me as though I was doing something wrong by serving and trying to have my voice heard and having a counter perspective, and sometimes arguing and debating with people who didn't have the same perspectives that I did about how we could best help kids. I always thought about how they were so loud, but also doing very little. And as I think about Steve Harvey, and I think about whether it was a good idea for him to sit down and take the meeting at Trump Towers, a place that I've been when competing on The Apprentice, and to meet with Donald Trump and to meet with his team, was it a good idea? Was it a bad idea? Was Donald Trump being bipartisan and reaching across the aisle by reaching out to Steve Harvey, someone who was a very vocal supporter of Hillary Clinton? It's a good question. Was it truly bipartisan? So I have a few thoughts about this. One, with my perspective of serving in an administration where people felt that I was a traitor. Minorities felt this way, conservatives felt this way, or I should say Democrats felt this way, liberals, however you want to call it. I'm really not big on the labels thing, but you know what I'm talking about. And when I look at it, I look that Steve has an amazing foundation that does great work. And I believe that his heart was in the right place in terms of wanting to be open, wanting to sit down and look for any opportunity that you can to make a difference. I don't think there's ever anything wrong with that. I think it's important that we sit at the table, that we are in uncomfortable situations. But the question is, what do we do with that platform? So I am in full support of everyone who has an opportunity to meet with any president, right? To sit down, to take the meeting. But also, what are you going to do when you have that meeting? What are you going to say? What are you going to talk about? We don't fully know, right? We weren't in the meeting, and we need to give it a chance to see if it's actually going to be fruitful. Now, what people have been outraged about and just pretty harsh on our Steve Harvey man here, pretty harsh. What people have been so upset about is they feel like Steve flipped really quickly because he was a staunch Hillary Clinton supporter. He was very much against Donald Trump and against his presidency and encouraged people to vote for Hillary Clinton. Now he's taking this meeting and he's advocating for listening to Trump and saying he seems like a really good man. Listen, I think this is what happened. I've sat at a table with Donald Trump before. I've met with him, and he's a very engaging, charismatic, and inspiring person one-on-one and in these small, intimate groups and meetings. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do The Apprentice. That's one of the reasons why I was enthusiastic about my time on The Apprentice for many years afterwards. So I won't get into my different thoughts around how Donald Trump has handled himself publicly right now. I will later. But I do understand how you can leave a meeting with him and feel inspired and encouraged and heard. And I think what we saw when Steve walked out of Trump Towers, he didn't have time to process it. I'm not sure he walked in with an agenda or a plan or really thought about what he was going to do with that opportunity or with the stage, with that spotlight. But he walked out feeling inspired and encouraged. But what we have to do is we have to be very careful about not having a plan in place before we make these types of meetings and we take these types of meetings. So here's what my real point is. Number one, we need to be at the table. You need to sit down and take every meeting that will help your community, that will help your country, that will forward an agenda that helps people. Yes, we got to do that. We got to stop dividing lines and calling people Uncle Toms and throwing around all these names that are no good, right? But at the same time, I do think that we need to be prepared. Especially when we have a platform, we need to be prepared. So instead of us crucifying Steve Harvey, why don't we come to see how can we support a man who has the ear of the President of the United States? How can we help an agenda that we're all in support for move forward in a stronger way? Now, do I think that Trump was bipartisan, right? Because that's part of this conversation. Was it bipartisan for him to reach across the aisle? I think it was strategic. So the one thing I learned from Donald Trump and that I know to be true about him, and the reason why he has been, will become who he is as a businessman, is because he's a marketer. And I'm a master marketer as well. I believe in the power of marketing. I believe marketing is one of my superpowers, one of my gifts, my skills, one of the things I do really, really well. But as a businesswoman, I understand the mind of a businessman. And Donald Trump has utilized celebrities and entertainers to promote stuff for a really long time. We're talking about casinos and fights and hotel openings, and he utilizes celebrity to get a message across. So do I think it was bipartisan? Not in the political sense, but in the business sense, absolutely. You are always trying to present an image that portrays the image that's necessary to get your agenda across. So we've talked about the Steve Harvey thing, right? We need to think about taking the meeting. We need to think about what we do with the meeting and not being so quick to endorse, but definitely being open to utilizing our platform, but we've got to do it in really strategic ways. Now, on the flip side of this whole bipartisanship, and this remix on what it means to be bipartisan in a Trump administration, what about the bigotry issue? Talking about John Lewis now, Congressman John Lewis, hero John Lewis, civil rights leader John Lewis. This man is amazing. When I talk about the energy that comes from his being, he embodies love. He embodies grace. He embodies patience. Now, don't get it twisted. Love also means I tell the truth. And so he is a truth speaker, and he is not shy about speaking the truth. But because he spoke the truth, I get to live in the house that I live in today. Because he spoke the truth and stood for the truth, facing hosing and dogs attacking him and marching in Selma and in so many other cities around our country, being a true civil rights soldier and right there in the front lines, to criticize him, for Donald Trump to criticize him, to me, I don't know that it was intentionally a sign of bigotry intentionally, but I think it shows the bubble that the elite live in. And I think what's unfortunate oftentimes is that Donald Trump, when someone throws a stone, he responds with a grenade. That's dangerous. It's dangerous. But at the end of the day, I think that what's super important when we look at this issue of bipartisanship, and it seems like he's trying to make a good outreach by reaching out to Steve Harvey, and then everyone goes up in arms about Steve Harvey. And then on the other side, we look at John Lewis, and it's like, okay, how are you going to attack one of our civil rights icons that's still alive and still serving? He's been serving longer than I've been alive. How are you going to attack him? We shouldn't stand for that. Nobody should. Black, white, Asian, because John Lewis stood on the front lines for every single one of us. Every single one of us. I think what it comes down to, when I look at this issue of bipartisanship and also bigotry, it comes down to this one word, and this is what I want you to remember: shallowness. I think that the reason why this thing with Steve Harvey and all these other entertainers, whether it be Kanye West or these famous people that keep rolling through Trump Towers, we don't see black political leaders. In fact, we see black political leaders being put down like a John Lewis, but we see celebrities and entertainers being lifted up and having a voice that can be spread. I think it comes down to shallowness. Both sides, we're seeing shallow bipartisanship, and we're seeing shallowness that manifests itself as bigotry. And I just want to say, for the record, since I am in Congressman John Lewis's district, that our district is doing well. We've got problems like every other city in the country that needs to be addressed and not put down by the leader of the free world. But I'm doing pretty well. And people in my community, we're doing our best to lift it up, and we're not, it's not a struggling district, it's a growing district. This is the same district where a lot of civil rights leaders live. This is the same district where mayors live, and some of the leaders who are on the front lines making sure that the city of Atlanta continues to grow and to be a shining beacon where entrepreneurship is thriving and businesses are growing and young people are being encouraged to step into their greatness. So that's the truth about our district, in case you wanted to know. But shallowness is dangerous. It's dangerous to our republic, it's dangerous to our communities, and it's dangerous to our consciousness, our collective consciousness as a United States of America and as a people. And so that's what I wanted to talk about today on Let's Talk. The idea that we don't need to challenge Steve Harvey, and we don't need to just throw rocks at and stones even at words that are offensive. We need to look at why it's offensive to begin with, and what the real risk is, and what the real danger is, and what we need to be prepared to speak out on over the next 4, possibly 8 years. Is shallowness. In the society that we live in today, that's the real enemy. That's what we have to attack. And so my question and my challenge for you is, how can you attack shallowness? Not on social media, not just by talking, when I do want to hear what you have to say, but what are you going to do differently? What are you going to do to be engaged in your community, to be engaged in these issues, as opposed to talking about people who are actually at least in the fight, right? So what are you going to do? Let me know. Let me hear from you. I enjoy talking about life, business, and politics, and everything else in between, and I love hearing what it is that you have to say. So thank you for joining me on Let's Talk. I am Marshawn Evans Daniels. Visit me at marshawn.com, and I will see you the next time. All right? Remember, shallowness is dangerous. That's the enemy. That's what we have to fight. We need substance and depth, and it starts with you. Take care, and God bless everyone. Bye.